Hey, deserved listeners, it's time to continue answering your emails regarding the trial. Let's get to it. Anonymous listener, he says, "Greetings from Canada. I just wanted to say I appreciate your perspective on the trial and am dismayed that some people on the internet are bullying and harassing you. I'm not sure if it will help, but you can always change your settings on YouTube to prevent commenting by non-subscribers." End of email. I didn't know that. You'd think I would by now, but I didn't know that. I didn't know you could prevent non-subscribers from commenting. I will say, though, just a little bit on that, when I first started putting stuff on YouTube, I didn't get any comments because no one was watching for years. And then slowly people started to comment, but it was usually like 1 or 2 comments. And a lot of videos got no comments. And I would see those 1 or 2 comments and I'd be, oh, someone's commenting. This is great. And a good percentage of the time, it was someone that was really not happy with what I was saying. And I thought, well, maybe it's an anomaly. Over months and years of that, I started to wonder, is there something different about YouTube people that makes them so upset, so easily angry at me? I don't understand, because people on Patreon or people who would email me, people on Instagram or Facebook, none of them talk like this, but YouTube is the one place where people would really hurt my feelings. And I thought, wow, and a lot of the accounts are associated with someone's name. A lot of accounts are anonymous, but some people's accounts are their names, so it's not completely anonymous. But so after a while, I was like, well, maybe I just don't read those comments, because all the regular people are, some people will criticize me on other platforms for sure, but not like this. And then I would put out episodes where it would be something that was popular, like an episode about Michael Jackson or O.J. Simpson or Harvey Weinstein or something. And I would go, oh, a lot more people are watching. I'd look at the comments. There were a lot of comments, and a lot of them hated me. And I thought, even though the like ratio was high, like the like to dislike was high, but the comments were very upset and very angry and very, I don't know what to say, scary, and or hurtful or demoralizing. And over time, I thought, well, I don't really care about YouTube anyway, because the only reason why I even started posting things on YouTube was because in the beginning of the podcast, I had a student who liked my podcast and said that she doesn't like listening to a podcast app. She listens to everything on YouTube. And I was like, well, who would want to watch a YouTube video with no video? Because that was the podcast back then. It was all audio, right? And she's like, well, but she was younger. She's like, you don't understand young people. We listen to stuff on YouTube. And this was back in like 2009 or something. And I'm thinking, really? Huh. Okay, whatever. But I didn't want the chore is the thing. I just wanted to upload it one place, and I didn't. Now it's like I upload it 15,000 places. But I said, okay, fine, I'll upload it. And I just thought, no one's going to listen to a podcast on YouTube, so that's just weird, Because I was very accustomed to podcast apps. Anyway, so fast forward, and I am now just getting all this really demoralizing comments in this one place. And I thought, well, I'll just turn off the comments, because I'm kind of tired of this, especially on certain topics. It's like some people are just completely biased and unhinged, and it's like they're not even listening to what I said. It's like just not healthy. And the way I thought about the comment section was, that's my comment section, that's my episode, it's my channel. And a lot of people seemingly were using the popularity of my episodes, although they weren't very popular, but relatively to other episodes I made, to spread misinformation or anger or rage or something, or abuse to other people. And the comments were just so toxic, really. And I thought, I'm just going to turn off the comments, because I don't really, and this is after years of dealing with it off and on. And I think I remember talking with my wife about this at one point, and I don't remember exactly, but I think what we did, or what she did, because she was mostly in charge of this, is turning off the comments on select videos or something, maybe like 1 or 2 videos. I'm not quite sure. But then we got a lot of hate because of that, because we had turned off the comments on 1 or 2 videos, like the Michael Jackson videos or something. And they weren't videos, they were just me and Umberto talking about things. Anyway, so people were hating us even more now because we had turned off the comments or had made the comments, you couldn't see them anymore. And to me, the whole concept just seems so strange. It's like, I'm not preventing you from talking. You could certainly talk on the internet, just you can't do it underneath my video. Talk about it anywhere else. But I don't want that on. I have control, and I guess I'm moderating this, and I don't care about the comments because I have all these other ways in which people are actually communicating with me in a much more rational way. So what's the difference if I turn off the comments? But people felt like it's their right to comment. And I think that culture is dominated even among non-unhinged people today on YouTube. So I think we turned back on, like this was years and years ago. Anyway, then I actually became kind of tiny little bit popular on YouTube about 2 years ago. And then the comment section completely changed, especially after the first few months of being slightly tiny bit popular on YouTube. The comment section started looking like the emails and Facebook and Instagram and all these other places. It started sounding more along those lines. It wasn't constant praise, but it just was less unhinged. And it took me a long time to figure out, but I have speculated that prior to me being slightly popular on YouTube, I didn't have much of a following on YouTube. And so the people that were finding me on YouTube were non-fans. They just liked that one topic, like they're Michael Jackson fans or something. And the only episode they ever heard was my episode. The only episodes of ours that they ever listened to was just that one episode. And so they didn't know me or my co-hosts. And so if I said anything that was questionable to them, they didn't have hours and hours of lectures and deep dives and episodes to say, well, I'm sure he didn't mean that because I've heard him say 10 things to the contrary. So I must have misinterpreted that wrong, or he misspoke or something. Benefit of the doubt, that kind of thing. So once I actually had a group of people on YouTube that were regular listeners and viewers, I guess, they started to dominate the comment section. Not that some people certainly people would disagree with me, but the tone was just so different. And so I didn't know that you could prevent non-subscribers from commenting. And even if I did, I don't know if I would do that because I've been attacked, I believe, 7 years ago or something, for turning off the comments on 1 or 2 videos. I remember people would just be super really angry at me, and I'm like, you could email me. It's a little bit more labor intensive, but if you want me to know something, then email me. The form's right there underneath the video if you want me to know something. But why do you need to, and if you need to announce something to the entire world, then go on the internet, but just don't do it underneath my video because I don't want to give you that kind of platform. The other thing is I don't know if that would have ended it, but it is something to think about, I guess. Plus, the people that were, I think, really going after me, they weren't in the comment section. They were on various echo chambers, like in certain subreddits. So that wouldn't have changed anything either. And that could have just been fuel to them, because that's a whole other thing. Sometimes, one time years ago, I made an episode, a reaction video, and people started saying, what did he just say? And it was some stupid slip of the tongue or something that I said that was just not what I believe. And Stacy actually alerted me, and she's like, some people in the comment section are really focused. And this is very early, I think, before I had people that knew me well enough to know that couldn't possibly be what I meant. So it was a lot of newcomers to my content. And so it was just 3 words or a phrase. It was very short. And Stacey's like, a lot of people are focusing on this. Did you mean to say that? And I looked at it, I'm like, no, I didn't mean to say that. That's pretty dumb. I was just speaking off the top of my head, and I said this thing, and I think I stopped mid-thought and moved on without explaining why I can't remember, but it didn't represent how I feel. And so Stacy's like, people are really reacting to it. I think you should do something about it. And I was like, I don't know, what do we do? And so we talked, and either one of us said, well, we'll just edit it out. So there's a thing on YouTube where you can just excise, you just cut it out. And so I said, yeah, go ahead and do that. It felt weird to do that, but I'm like, well, if because it's not how I think. So, and if it's being misunderstood by people, or I don't know, just take it out. So she took it out. And then that started a whole other wave of, I think, gave them fuel, because to them, they thought I was trying to hide something, that I truly did believe that. And so I took it out because I knew it was bad, and it was secretly revealing that I was this terrible human being or something. And I'm like, no, I took it out because it was a stupid thing to say, and I don't agree with it. And you're right that it was dumb, and clearly it was hurting people's feelings, and I don't think that way, so I took it out. And I didn't realize this until a year or so later. Someone sends me this subreddit, thing, and it's many people talking about that phrase that I said. And I can't tell you the adrenaline fight or flight reaction I had as I'm looking at this Reddit echo chamber from a year previous. This would have been a couple years ago now. And I was like, I gotta tell them that what really, because there's all this like assumptions about who I was and what that meant, and everyone's talking a conspiracy this and like, and then people are bouncing off of what other people are saying, having never even seen my channel, and they're like, I know people like him, he is that, and they're like, I'm like, what, how did this happen from one person starting off the post with a misunderstanding, which I get, and then people, it was really, I don't know what word to put to it other than distressing, and traumatic is a strong word, but I think that fits. And so I'm just, I can't sleep at night. I can't relax. I'm like, what do I do? And so I'm like, okay, I need to tell them the truth, which is, yeah, I said something stupid, and you're right that what I said could be interpreted that way. And yeah, that's not how I think. I've been fighting, I can't remember what it was, but it was some kind of issue that they thought that I believed. And I'm like, no, for 25 years, I've been fighting the good fight, and I'm not what you think that is. I've never even thought that, ever. And it's not some secret thought that I'm hiding. Like, no, what therapist believes that, or something like that? And I tried to comment on the Reddit, but it was so old that the comments had been turned off, which I didn't know was a thing. Because I'm usually a lurker on Reddit, because I don't understand how to do those kinds of things. I mean, I understand how to do it, but I don't understand the language. One time, that's a tangent, but I one time ranked every single Beatles song, and there's something like 300 plus Beatles songs. And I was really proud of the list, and I spent a lot of time on it, and I followed this subreddit, Our Beatles, and I thought, I'll share it with those people. And so I shared it, and all I got was hate, because they're like, how come you didn't put this song up there? And how dare you put that song towards the bottom? I mean, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, what is happening? I'm providing an opinion. And did you think that every Beatles fan has the exact same feeling about every single Beatles song? I mean, and it wasn't just like, I don't agree with you. It was just a lot of rage. And I'm thinking, how, and so Reddit, I just learned, I don't understand it. Clearly I'm doing something wrong, so I'm just gonna lurk. Anyway, so I was trying to comment on it, I couldn't, and it really got under my skin that I couldn't, and I thought, so for a year now, these people have been thinking all these things. People that don't even know me think this about me, or think this about a therapist, which is just a terrible thing to think, that I try to represent our field well, and I wouldn't want anyone to think a therapist would think stuff like that, because I don't want people to not go to therapy, right? So it's stuff like that where, how did I get on this subject? I think what I was getting at, was that if I made it that non-subscribers couldn't comment on YouTube, then I don't know if I'm just overreactive, but I'm guessing a certain amount of people, it would give them 10 times more energy to hate me and go after me and try to take away my license so I can't treat my clients, because they believe that by doing that, I'm trying to hide something. And it sounds ridiculous when I say it out loud, but believe me, like there's some weird things that are happening in the world. Anyway. Anonymous patron says, Dear Dr. Honda, just a note to say how inspiring it is to see how the tone in the comment section has changed after you have been vulnerable, shared your feelings, and explained what you do and why. You are a really great example for addressing something hurtful head on with vulnerability and respect. Thank you. Yeah, I didn't know that, but I heard other people saying this, that, whenever I started talking a little bit about it, I think in a couple episodes, I just talked about how I was feeling about what was happening in the comment section and on different subreddits. And I heard that people, the tone changed. And, it just reminds me and maybe all of us that vulnerability is the answer to a lot of the ills of the world. Like with Putin, for example. Imagine if he could just say, the fact that NATO is on my doorstep makes me feel afraid, and I have an urge to invade as a way of gaining a buffer, i.e. Ukraine, because that will give me land between you and me that I can work with. And if he had said, but deep down, I'm just afraid and I feel weak or something. Imagine if the NATO or other people could say, totally get that. We're not a threat. We want to be friends. We want to work together. We depend on each other. Let's talk about it. Maybe I'm just some kind of ridiculous idealist, but I really do think that so many things could improve in the world if we all were able to be vulnerable and it was received and responded to in a healthy way. So I guess I did that inadvertently, and it, I guess, helped the whole community situation. Anonymous listener says, with Amber Heard being possibly histrionic, I keep thinking how her stories could both be attention-seeking and true. I know I've disclosed my mom probably having histrionic personality to you on the level of a disorder, and if she ever recounts an event, it's going to be in your face, requiring approval, and uncomfortably emotive, which Amber Heard often is. Sometimes there are embellishments, but there is also truth in all the theatrics. I know you're doing your best, and I don't want to come off as critical. You're not. You're just pointing something out. But it's just a thought I've had while watching your videos. Yeah, that's not critical at all. That's. I want to be clear. Like, anonymous listener, there's nothing critical in there. You're just like saying, hey, this is what I saw. It's not critical. Or even if you said, I wonder if you're missing something. How about this? That's also not critical. That's a conversation. I think we can hear from some of the emails I read earlier what I'm referring to in terms of the things that hurt my feelings. It's their truth, and so I validate it and welcome it, but it still hurts. But yeah, absolutely. So, and I think I said that her stories are clearly embellished, or at least some of them, or at least there's strong evidence. And certainly a lot of people, 75% of you, because I polled you, I sent a poll to y'all, 75% of you, and clearly the jury thought that there were embellishments. And I also would say it's possible that there's a grain of truth to this, that if she stuck to that from the beginning in 2016 forward, she might have won the case. If she would have said, he hit me once or twice and I was terrified, I mean, that's 100% abusive and criminal and wrong, and would have matched the evidence that she occasionally would have. Or even that one picture, that selfie where there's a bruise on her arm, but there's nothing on her face. If she said, he grabbed me really hard because he was really angry at me, and that's all she said, that's abuse right there. That's abuse. And in my mind, that would justify the article in the Washington Post. But the fact that they were so seemingly embellished meant that a lot of people discounted everything that she said, which isn't necessarily unwise to do. But yeah, so some people with histrionic will not necessarily lie. Well, it's a lie to exaggerate, right? But they will lie in a way where they're not completely making it up. They're just they're making a mountain out of a molehill. And they might not even know that they're doing that. They might actually, and I've talked about this in all the other episodes, they might be so distorted. Histrionic individuals, some of them, the lying type, if they don't have a lot of insight or recovery, they will believe their lies in a very bizarre fashion where you're like, there's no way that that's true, and there's no way you possibly believe that to be true, and yet they will. So can someone like your mom, or if Amber Heard has histrionic, take something that's real and embellish and then have it look like they're lying completely? Yeah. And I could absolutely see that happening. Now, of course, the pro Johnny Depp people hate me, as we've read other emails previously, for even, raising the question mark as to whether or not it's possible that Amber Heard might be telling the truth about some things. So I'm terrified to say that you're possibly right, or that your hypothesis is one on the list. Just like, I don't understand how, I don't know, that people would interpret that phrase like, that hypothesis is on the list. It's one of the hundreds of hypotheses that we could consider to be on the list, because there's enough reason to have that as an hypothesis. For me to say that somehow makes me harmful to the planet, I don't get it. I shouldn't be defensive. It's wrong. Katie from Washington says, I've been listening for 3 years, and I just wanted to say thank you. I came to your podcast as a novice peer counselor working in community mental health. I wanted to understand and support my clients ethically and safely. In the time I've listened, you have helped me to do just that. This podcast has also helped me tremendously in my personal life. There's a lot of nice additional things that Katie says, so thank you, Katie, for that. I am taking the time to thank you now, in particular because the trial content is free. I am very appreciative of that, and it's helped me to process some relationship dynamics that I've been in. Oh, well, good, Katie, I'm glad. Ellen says, I enjoy your view and expertise on psychology, and especially borderline personality disorder. I've been told by family members that I have borderline personality disorder, but my counselor says that I don't. But I feel I should be tested for this because I have, I believe, traits of borderline personality disorder. I want to take an MMPI test for borderline personality disorder. Well, Ellen, one, you don't need an MMPI test to assess whether or not you have borderline. And even if you did take the test and did receive the results and did have someone that understood how to interpret it, that wouldn't provide a strong foundation for that diagnosis. So your therapist says that you don't have it. Well, it's possible that your counselor understands you very, very well, but just doesn't frame it that way in their mind. So if it helps, talk with your counselor about it and say, I really do think I have borderline, and let me tell you why, and just kind of lay it out. And it's possible that your counselor will say, oh, well, I wouldn't call you borderline, but it's good for me to know that other stuff that you think means you have borderline, because it's good for me to know that you think you have relational traumas, that you think a lot about abandonment, that you think a lot about betrayal, you're easily triggered, you get distorted at times, and I didn't know that. Or your counselor would say, absolutely, I already know that. I'm already helping you with that. I just don't call that borderline. So you don't need the MMPI for that. But at the very least, absolutely talk with your counselor about it. Your counselor, if they're a good one, which I'm guessing they are since you're going to them, will listen and will talk with you about it. Absolutely. So, give them a chance. Kurt says, thank you for your thoughtful coverage. I have been seeing a lot of people who are angry in the comments about you giving Amber too much slack. I'm confused about where all the pain and anger is coming from. I'm surprised with how much backlash you are getting. Maybe you can have some insight on this. I even started watching Love is Blind so I can test my very new relationship counseling skills before watching your episodes. Thank you for what you do. Oh, well, good, Kurt. By the way, Kurt, Kirk, everyone always calls me Kurt. In fact, some longtime listeners to this podcast will email me and call me Kurt. And someone emailed me recently and called me Kurt and spelled it with an I, which it's like K-I-R-T. And I'm always like, but I get it, because Kirk and Kurt, it sounds very similar. Although sometimes people call me Craig, which I'm like, how do you get Craig out of? Or Mark, which is another weird thing. Like occasionally people will call me, they'll forget my name and they'll call me Mark, which is additionally weird because my brother's name is Mark. I'm like, are you sensing my brother or something? Anyway. But yeah, so you ask if I have any insight into where all the pain and anger is coming from. And well, after reading a lot of these emails, I hesitate to speculate because I feel like the people who wrote those emails or have similar sentiments will feel like I'm discounting them. Because, okay, well, so very briefly, because I could probably talk about this for a long time, and this episode's already too long. But one is that they are right, that there is validity to what they're saying, that I didn't say this or that enough, and the message that I'm putting out there could easily be taken in a certain way. So that's one. Two, I am biased. I'm also a man and privileged and have a lot of power in the world. And so when I yammer, it's quite possible that I'm just kind of stomping along and am not really careful enough about things. So there's validity to what they're saying, or at least the spirit behind what they're saying has logic to it, even though many people might not be able to relate to it. not everyone experiences the world in the same way. So there's that, and that's all true and likely. The other thing I'll say is it's clear to me that some, not all, but some people who seemed particularly upset at me as an individual were having transference for a number of reasons. One was that they were abused. Maybe so. Let's just provide a profile. You have someone who was abused severely by their father, and they long for love from their father that they never got. And they have a lot of issues in their life, a lot of pain, a lot of ongoing trauma, real trauma, complex trauma, a lot of suffering. And they go to therapy, they go on the internet, and then they find my channel and they go, okay, I'll give this guy a chance, see what's happening. And then they start to open up to me. And then they open up and they start to actually, feel like they're healing to some extent. People have told me that. People, even in my personal life, will say that they were abused by their father growing up, and having a good relationship with me is very curative to them, which makes total sense. I mean, I have people in my life that are like that for me, and so it makes sense that I would be that for other people. And so since I'm on YouTube, then there's a chance a lot of people are having that experience. And they are really opening up, and they're feeling like they can trust me, but there's a natural tendency to transfer one's abusive father onto me, especially if I do something that reminds them of their father. And so if you are pro Johnny Depp or pro Amber Heard, and especially, and then of course, the additional element to this is even before I ever reacted to the trial, individuals might know about what's happening between the two of them and heavily identify with one side. So this scenario, you're abused by your father, and you could identify heavily with Amber Heard because you have Johnny Depp who is abusing her, and you might have even been in abusive relationships in your adult life, and so you really identify with Amber Heard and really hate Johnny Depp because of your own history. And there's enough reasons, particularly before the trial, to conclude that you were the same. Or people that, regardless of gender, identify with Johnny Depp because they had someone in their life that looks like Amber Heard, and they feel like Amber Heard is a horrible person and Johnny Depp is this innocent child because they're projecting onto that person because that's how they were when they were growing up. They were the viewer is an innocent child growing up, and they look at the case and they conclude that Johnny Depp is 100% innocent, and they put themselves into Johnny Depp and they put their abusive father into Amber Heard or whoever was abusive to them. And then I come along and I'm like, maybe Johnny Depp's telling the truth, and maybe he was the victim. Maybe Amber Heard was victimized. Maybe she is telling the truth. Maybe not. I don't know. That space can be extremely threatening if you have bonded with me, if you have experienced me as a safe human being, as someone that's corrective, finally safe after a lifetime of looking for someone or having a very limited amount of people that felt an authority that you could trust. To have someone flippantly, I guess it might feel that way, just sort of toggle on and off, like as if I was saying to the individuals watching, maybe you did deserve to be abused. I don't know. Who knows? He said, she said. Your abusive father says you did deserve it, or he never abused you. So maybe he is telling you the truth, and maybe you're lying about all the terrible abuse that you claim you went through when you were a child. That's how it would feel like, right? Because I'm toggling back and forth. And the heavy identification and the heavy, somewhat healthy and helpful transference that these people were already having with me. And then I'm just like, click, click, I don't know, maybe they did. Anyway, moving on. Because I didn't feel it. I didn't know that that's what would be happening for people. And honestly, I don't think I really fully appreciated the potential transference that is helpful to people that could be happening towards me from the audience. I mean, I always knew that there was some of that happening. I would get emails of, clearly something's going on there, but I would never really know, and I still don't, obviously. But so I think there's a percentage, 5-10% of people that were highly triggered. I think that's an explanation for that potential hypothesis. I don't know. I think also, I think I have enough evidence to say that there were some people who didn't even watch my videos and would literally just come to the comment section to say things that they thought happened because they heard some rumor on a subreddit and decided to, because there were some comments where I'm like, did you even watch the video? Because I didn't say anything of the sort. In fact, in that video, I said the complete opposite. So I don't understand. And of course, some people could be heavily distorted, but we just know, particularly given what we learned from these echo chambers on the internet, that people were actively saying, go get him. Like, go get, and someone actually shared with me this list. I was on a hit list, literally, on a subreddit where they listed out the channels, the YouTube channels of people that were the enemy, and the instructions were to go get those people. And I was on the list. And I don't even know if it was a pro Johnny Depp or a pro Amber Heard channel or a pro Amber Heard subreddit, because I get it from both sides. It was one of the two. And I was targeted, and they said, and so I'm guessing a lot of people on that channel didn't even know who I was. A lot of people in that subreddit didn't even know who I was. And so I don't think that was many, let's say 2 or 3% of the people were like that. I don't know. So that's my hypothesis at this point. But I don't know if I'll ever know, because it's been something I've been thinking about for 14 years or however many years I've been on YouTube. And I never really know, because I don't get a chance to talk with these people. If I could talk with them and we could have a back and forth for 45 minutes, I could, and I had enough of those conversations, I probably could tell you some hypothesis, or I'd even tell you, well, this is what this person said, or this is what we came up with collaboratively, or something, because that's what I do with my clients. When I trigger a client accidentally or whatever, and they hate me, attack me, we talk about it, and then we collaborate on a conceptualization of what happened, because often there's a misunderstanding or a trigger or something, or I did something wrong, but it doesn't mean that I hate them, or it means that I did something wrong. I'm a human being and I say stupid stuff sometimes. It doesn't mean that I can't be trusted as a human being. It doesn't mean that I'm secretly trying to get people. It just means that I said something stupid or I was in a bad mood. People do that. It doesn't globally mean something about me, But that's the worry, of course, because that's what happened when they were young, and that's what happened even as an adult. They meet someone, they fall in love, it seems great, there's a sign, but they brush it off, and then later on they realize, oh, that was actually the rule, not the exception. They're a horrible human being, they're abusing me, I should have listened to that first initial red flag. They see a red flag from me, and they think something terrible is happening. And so I think that's another reason. But like I said in the beginning, I would absolutely speculate that there were absolute legitimate reasons why people were triggered. The language was a little over the top, but the fact that they were upset, it makes all the sense in the world to me. And there were things that I did that I wouldn't have done if I wouldn't have known that it was happening. And that's one of the biggest problems that I hate about YouTube and about podcasting, is that when I'm lecturing, when I am teaching, when I am supervising, when I am providing therapy, your face is right there and I will see what happens. And I know you well enough that I can kind of pick up on things. Or you'll literally just say, hey, I don't like that, or something, People will go, huh? I'll be teaching a class of 10 people and I'm always just scanning faces, not because I'm paranoid, but because, I don't know, I just want to have eye contact. And as I'm doing that, 1 out of 10 of the students, one of them would be like going, huh? Or 1 out of 10 would be like, huh? And I'll be like, oh, what? What happened there? What'd I do? And then I catch it and then I address it, or I go, oh, you're right. That was dumb that I just said that, or something. But the fact that there's no ability to do that on the internet, I think it just amps up their rhetoric. And because like that subreddit that hated me, if they would have just asked me for a conversation on the phone, I would have talked to them, but they never did. They never said, hey, let's talk. Let's get on Zoom and let's have a conversation one-on-one. That never happens. It's always just like grumble, 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 volcano, and then explode. And then I'm just like, what the hell is happening? And we're not made for the internet. We didn't evolve to do this kind of communication, clearly. And I certainly didn't come from a species that evolved to handle it, clearly. Anyway. Karen from Canada says, I have really appreciated your observations. And then the rest of the email is providing some context as to why Johnny Depp made that comment about drowning Amber Heard, because he and Paul Bettany, who was the person he was texting with, come from a generation of fellas who were obsessed with Monty Python when they were young. And there was that scene that I'm very well aware of in Holy Grail, where they come upon this knight, and he's supposed to be a judge as to whether or not this woman is a witch, and they're like, throw in the lake, and if she sinks, then she's a witch, or something like that. And it's making fun of the misogyny and the sexism of today through a lens of our view of medieval sexism. And it's a glorious, just really hilarious scene. I mean, anyway. So could Johnny Depp not actually meant that he wanted to drown Amber Heard and was referring to Monty Python? He said that he was, right? Yeah, absolutely. Could he have just been saying that to spin it in that way? Could be as well. It's just hard to know what anyone meant. And we would never know, because even if you asked Paul Bettany, he would just be like, well, I think he meant this. And the only one that knows what he meant by it was Johnny Depp. So it's a complete black box of knowing. But yeah, Holy Grail, when my brother was watching it, so this would have been in the early days of VHS, like 1981 or something. And my brother and his friends were, he's like 7 years older, and they were watching Monty Python Holy Grail. I sit down, because I want to be like my older brother, and I'm watching Holy Grail, and at the beginning, I'm like, what is this? And that movie blew my mind. I had never seen anything like it before, and to this day probably haven't either. I mean, I'm getting chills thinking about the experience. I mean, the humor options that it opened up, it's like the sky opened up and there was Monty Python. Like, I just thought, I mean, I almost feel like my brain changed watching that movie. It was life-changing in so many, not just with humor, but among so many things that movie to a 9-year-old boy was just like, what am I watching? Anyway. All right, well, let's end it there, and then I'll pick up later. I'll answer more of your emails. So everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.